Thanks a lot for doing this.
No problem.
The first question that I wanted to ask you is, what was your favorite game as a child and why?
So I used to play lots of games as a child. Loved all the football games like FIFA, ISS. But I suppose my favorite game of all time would be Final Fantasy VII. Sure, you've heard of Final Fantasy. Love all the Final Fantasy games, but 7 was easily the best. Mainly for the freedom of, you could just go anywhere and on the world map, and you could just spend loads of time just leveling up and getting yourself ready for the big monsters to fight. Yeah, I mean, I think the number of hours I spent on it, when you paused it, told you how many hours you'd spent, and mine was just paused, like stuck on 9999 forever. So I know that I spent a ridiculous amount of time on there. I suppose the other game for me that I spent a lot of time on was Championship Manager. So this is a way to manage a football team and take them, try and win the Champions League. I used to always enjoy challenging myself to take an unknown team to the top over many years, and would invest ridiculous amounts of hours trying to do that. And I suppose always being a stato that I am, Championship Manager was perfect because I could just continually look at the players and see all the marginal gains I was making on each one, which I guess lends itself to what I do now, really, managing spreadsheets and growth hacking and trying different things to grow the business. So yeah, that's probably my top.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting that you went straight to kind of video games. And for example, like it could have been, I don't know, playing football outside. It really depends on, who you're talking to, and then you see what their interests are. And yeah, games are incredible because of course they give you the chance to learn a lot, and kind of even have a career as a football manager, testing things and trying out things. It gives you sort of satisfaction when of course you get those marginal gains that you talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I did go outside.
That wasn't in plan.
Yeah, physically, always wanted to win. But yeah, I guess naturally video games is something I think about when I think about my childhood.
Yeah. And so now you are the founder of 2 companies. One is EdTech Impact and the other one is EdTech Evidence Group. Can you tell us a little bit more about them and what they are about?
Yeah, sure. So EdTech Impact was something I started 2.5 years ago on the back of another business I founded 11 years ago called Innovate My School, which was a large community of teachers sharing articles on how they innovated in their school. Technology always playing a key part in that. We grew it to about 50,000, 2,500 articles, 50,000 subscribers, and we were also running lots of essentially speed dating events where we introduced education suppliers to groups of head teachers, school leaders around the UK. And I guess we were always at the heart of procurement. Like basically these speed dates were a mini marketplace. And so you get to learn a lot about buying and selling to schools. And I just felt that the procurement was changing. Like schools were becoming more discerning. They were asking better questions around what they want. They're starting to look into and build strategies now, particularly when it comes to technology. So identifying something that meets their needs requires a deeper evaluation. And from the supply side, like if you're a school trying to find a product, it's kind of you probably heard it before, the Wild West. Like there's no governance to it. There's just loads of similar competing products making huge wild claims. But on the supply side, it's extremely difficult because you're competing against very similar products. It's usually the company that has the most money that gets seen and heard because they can get a sales team to smash the phones, and they can pay for the largest exhibition stand. And I just felt it wasn't very equitable. as a marketplace, there was this huge lack of transparency, and really difficult to try and sell into schools even if you're a scale up. So built EdTech Impact as an independent review platform to help schools find everything in one place, everything under one roof, and then make better decisions by using independent verified reviews, focusing specifically on the impacts the products will have in different school contexts. And so for the suppliers, we give them a platform to independently prove their quality. It's free for them to join, so there's no barriers there. And then they can start to create this evidence base, this feedback loop between them and their customers, and use all of that to really prove why a school should invest in them. And then EdTech Evidence Group kind of spun out of my work with EdTech Impact. So you've probably seen this growing demand for more evidence generally across the whole sector, evidence-informed teaching and learning. Well, ultimately, if you're investing in a technology product, you want to know, like, is it going to work? Like, is it going to work in a school like mine? What are the conditions for success? Show me the evidence should be one of the questions every school teacher, parents is looking for or asking if they're talking to the supplier. So, but this is all right saying it, but it's really hard to build up. Like, there's a lack of knowledge, I think, on the supplier side of how to do this. You're a startup, then you've got so many competing priorities. How do you find the time to build your evidence base? So the EdTech Evidence Group, so I came alongside many other EdTech founders in the UK to help build the knowledge base around what good evidence looks like and how you can start building it, essentially.
Yeah, I've also seen that, for example, you partner with Finland or with other institutions that kind of provide kind of scores in terms of like the reliability of a certain product and what are the things that, for example, a teacher should be looking for. So basically, when someone comes to EdTech Impact and they browse, for example, a company, they really are able to see, okay, this company was endorsed by this, and this, not just, of course, real people, real teachers, but also kind of other institutions to really, okay, assess the quality of the whole kind of the whole platform. And that I found really, really interesting, and is something that you don't see very much out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's so fragmented, the education sector, the marketplace in particular, and there's a lot of good organizations doing some good work about out there building up, helping build the evidence base. And Education Alliance Finland are providing independent evaluations of the pedagogy of learning tools, and the data they're producing is I thought was brilliant, and everybody should see this. So yeah, we've integrated with them so that everyone who has one of their evaluations, that data will now appear on their EdTech Impact profile. So it's just trying to join the dots, ultimately with the goal of helping the end user, the buyer, schools, teachers, parents, make better decisions.
And the way that you came up with this idea was at your time in one of the schools you were working at. You were the IT manager of a high school, if I'm correct.
Yes, so I was actually IT technician when I joined at Cardinal Heenan Catholic High School in Liverpool, where my dad was the head. So I was fortunate enough for him to give me a job there, and I eventually just got myself involved in all sorts of projects there. The first big one was setting up a school VLE. We used Moodle. I became known as Moodle Mike. And essentially helping create this virtual learning environment across the school, so all the departments could upload their work and students could submit homework and things, and really try and build this online community. And yeah, I mean, that alongside many other projects, the school went through what was called a BSF Wave 2. So they were getting given funding to basically rebuild the school. Mm-hmm. It was years old. It used to be an orphanage. So with that came quite a decrepit building at this stage. So they were getting this new building and the infrastructure to go with it. So I got involved in a lot of the discussions there around digital strategy. And then I started helping other schools set up that Moodle, their VLE. I was doing website design as a side hustle, so I had quite a few things going on, but really cut my teeth at Cardinal Heenan and got to experience the amount of innovation that goes on from different teachers and different classes. They're bringing back these ideas. I was going to the likes of the Bet Show and bringing back new innovations, and I just thought, yeah, we need to scale all this up, and that led me on to Innovate My School. But yeah, Cardinal Heenan really helped inspire me to do a lot of things I'm doing now.
That is amazing. How kind of you took that opportunity and you really like created then a career for yourself, and you built your own company, identifying this kind of gap in the market. In your opinion now, what would you say the main issues that schools face in terms of education?
Well, that's a broad question. I'll focus on procurement, I suppose, and technology. That's my world. So I think obviously everyone's just gone through this massive experiment of trialing loads of technology. Most likely, if you're a school in England, Google or Microsoft, because the government made it free for every school. So now every school has some form of digital strategy, which is great because I think we've advanced like 5-10 years into adopting technology and building an early stage strategy. There's a lot of work to do, and I think schools are now going to hopefully move into a more comprehensive aspirational strategy. Like, where do we actually want to be now? We've all got confidence around using technology, and we've seen some amazing examples around the world of how schools have managed to flip their learning and seamlessly provide a blended learning, hybrid learning experience throughout the pandemic. So I think support around digital strategy, it holds the key really to effective use of technology in every way. So what should our tech infrastructure look like? What's the change management? Like, how are we going to support it? What does the leadership want? Where do we want to be? What type of teaching and learning do we want to deliver beyond the school day, beyond the classroom? What ecosystem of products? So what software tools are we going to use to do that? And what training we're going to provide, because it shouldn't just be a one-time hit. So I think around digital strategy is definitely the next one. And obviously there's the big gap around access to devices. That's been much talked about. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges to overcome first. There's a lot of initiatives popping up now, and maybe the government will keep delivering there to provide laptops, and then not everyone was able to get one. So there is more work to be done there.
Yeah. And do you think the kind of slowly kind of adapting to kind of technology, is it depending on kind of teachers not being exposed enough to all the tools that they could use, and then kind of when they find one, then they don't know how to proceed, maybe it's too complex for them? What would you say is the biggest barrier between a kind of a teacher adopting an amazing kind of EdTech tool and using it with the students?
I think it boils down to, well, I've mentioned the strategy, but the implementation that comes with that. So there's so many examples of a project kicking off and being pioneered by this outstanding teacher who's then left or becomes too busy, and then the whole thing just falls away and fizzles out, and it falls into the cupboard of shame, the virtual cupboard of shame, and then it becomes another cost. Everyone becomes a little bit more risk averse, and then the next time another one comes along, everyone's a bit skeptical around using that. So it becomes a bit of a vicious cycle, and there's been lots of that in the past. But I think with effective implementation and, to be fair, more support from the suppliers, which I think they're putting in now around customer success. We've moved from, there's a lot of cloud-based SaaS products being used in schools now, usually on an annual subscription or even monthly. So that supplier's got to work hard to get that renewal now. And I think schools are getting a bit more ruthless with auditing, and business managers who are coming in with industry experience who are able to quite easily chop out things that aren't being used. So I think the suppliers are working harder, and I think a lot hasn't been said around the impact the tools are actually having as well. Like, again, going back to evidence, really, I think schools need to know like why they're actually using the tool, like what impact do we want to achieve, what's the metric we're going to measure here, rather than just like, let's use this tool, because it's a lesson plan or the kids seem engaged. Like, let's start collecting our own evidence after school and not rely entirely. Like, one thing you're procuring, say you're asking the supplier, show me the evidence base, maybe you trial the product and collect your own evidence at that stage. But once you've got it in the school, it shouldn't stop there. Like, keep going with it. Survey the students, interview the teachers, measure, collect the data, use maybe if it's about measuring learning, then do some pre and post assessments. You establish a baseline, establish where are we today, where are we now at the end of the year, or in 3 months' time. There's lots of different ways they could assess. So I think it's about better evaluation in the school, and workload is always going to be the biggest barrier to that. But we're not running randomized control trials here. We're just talking about collecting more data, more applications.
And at times it's not even about kind of collecting, because the teacher is there administering the classes and everything. So it's just about kind of sorting it in the right places, and probably being a bit more organized with it, and of course doing kind of long studies with kind of students that try the new product, or kind of experience the whole, I don't know, year using the product, and comparing, I don't know, against the previous year, what is the actual engagement, what is the kind of percentage of the students that really remember what we taught. But again, some of those things are a bit harder probably to assess, like engagement.
Yeah, it's tricky, and you can spend a lot of money paying for studies to be conducted on this, but I think it's important that you should keep pushing to build that. That's the business case. That's the why someone should invest in you and buy your product. And equally on the school side, I think, if you want to keep using it, then build your own evidence. It's really important.
And so now that we're kind of hopefully coming at the end of the pandemic, the past year has been really tough on education, and schools kind of had to quickly find ways to really deliver distance learning, and keep the kids keep them occupied and keep them engaged, of course, with homework and things like that. And so my question for you is, have you seen any shifts in the edtech industry during the pandemic? And if so, what is the thing that surprised you the most?
Well, I've never seen so many product launches since the start of the year. Everyone's adapting to have a digital solution if they didn't have one in place. Face-to-face selling and customer support has had to change. And so people I'm seeing a bit of a amalgamation. Like, tools are doing a lot more now. They're either coming together and being acquired into bigger all-in-one platforms. There's a lot of movement going on around the MIS market. There's been a lot of acquisitions there, and obviously a management information system sits at the heart of the school. So people are looking long term at as an investment. I think I'm seeing a lot around adaptive learning now. I'm pretty interested in that myself, of where tools will use AI and machine learning to basically tailor or customize the learning journey for the student based on how they respond to questions and how long they take, everything like that. So I think that has the power to really transform learning outside the school. And and save a lot of time for the teachers.
Yeah, that's really like the best solution, because often talk about, of course, systems. Okay, you can administer tasks and things like that, but one of the main issues probably with schools is that the programs are kind of based on calculated on averages, so they fit the majority but they don't fit all students. So I agree with you on this, kind of finding something that can be adapted and can be tailored to different students, and student A doesn't even have to know that student B is having, I don't know, half an hour longer to complete an assignment or something like that. I find extremely beneficial.
Yeah, and it's only going to grow. There's, I think, 46 adaptive learning platforms in EdTech Impact right now. So, and that's just growing and growing, and the reviews for those are coming in extremely positive. Two of the other trends I've seen is the generosity of the EdTech industry to make their platform free, or even to produce a rate of knots, a parent version almost overnight. And I know a lot of these companies are quite early stage. I think someone said 50% of the EdTech industry is startup. So these guys won't have much of a runway to survive, and they're now just wiping all their revenue and making the product free. So I think seeing that was great. I don't think that gets recognized much. Always from the school perspective, like how's it going to help my school? Like, well, these guys are taking massive risks to actually still be here to do all this.
Another one that I have is, since you work with kind of EdTech companies, and you know a lot about them, and of course what they do and how they do it, and kind of how well they're doing. Do you need, there is a need of kind of more training for teachers, to be able to kind of deliver stronger lessons to children and then prepare them for a tech world? You think what is the thing that we need to kind of go to the next step? Because now we've seen, okay, schools are adapting slowly. What is the next step? Because we know that probably most of these kids, when they grow, will have to kind of build their own or make their own kind of career out of probably jobs that don't exist this very moment. And it's probably gonna have to, it's gonna be linked to technology and in the internet. And so do you think then, how can we support teachers kind of bring more technology?
I think you're right, it's around training, ongoing training. It's not just send someone to a training session for the day. It's, look what's going on outside of in higher education with micro credentials and this like continuous personal development. There's so many online courses that people are doing now, and I think that hasn't really transferred fully to education or the role of teachers. And ultimately, they've got to keep skilling up. It's a scenario of the students being better than the teacher delivering a computing lesson is, that can't happen. So you're right. It's about investment in training, and that's going to bring confidence, which has been one of the biggest barriers to EdTech adoption over the years. So a clear vision and training plan for supporting all of your staff through the future. You're right, the digital skills gap is huge. I think training or support on the student side around the soft skills as well, like preparing them for work. I've had various apprentices through Innovate My School, and it is quite worrying at the level that they're at when you go through the interviews. And I think just the more preparation we can give for the real world and what it's like, the better. It's not rosy. There's going to be ups and downs. You need strong resilience. There's a lot of exciting tech roles now. EdTech Impact is I'd like to think an exciting tech startup, but it's not all bean bags and benefits. There's there's a lot of there's a lot of hard work, but with that comes lots of upside and lots of learning and development. And I think the more we can coach students into that mindset of like a growth mindset, continuous learning, and the teachers too, then we're all going to be better off.
I agree with you. I have exhausted the number of questions in terms of education and systems, because you really kind of touched upon so many things, and I think some things that we just talked about are also kind of caused by just generational gaps. And so some things I think schools can do something about, but some others, there will always be some sort of kind of generational gap, especially when it comes to technology. But I agree with you, with more training given to the teachers by the school and by of course, the companies that won contracts, then I'm sure that a better future is going to be built for the kids of today.
Yeah, definitely. I just think that there's so many distractions for the kids of today now.
I mean, probably it's more of a concentration kind of thing, and just kind of teaching kids to focus on something. But yeah, everything is, it's fast. And then when I was 10 or 12, I didn't have all the things that I see kids have right now, like a tablet and a phone and then a laptop. And then you're watching something on YouTube and learning something, and then you take the phone of your mom or dad and you kind of play a game, and then at the same time you use the computer, you do an assignment. And there's always like, yeah, you're right, there's a lot of distractions, but I still don't see a way out of that.
It might seem a bit left field, but I don't know if you followed any of the European Super League debate in football.
Oh yes.
And one of the concerns is that the kids will not be as interested or engaged, so they're trying to make it, they're trying to pitch the best teams against the best continually. And it sort of links back to what we just said about the kids having so many distractions. Like even football's got to work extra hard to try and keep them engaged. And so imagine being a teacher. I think it just highlights just how hard that is to keep them engaged in learning when they can't even stay engaged in football. So we've got to think of new ways to do that. Absolutely.
Thinking out of the box, and probably, I don't know, one of the things that come to mind to me is that, like, if you make it more about them and less about you as a teacher, in terms of the talking for an hour and a half and kind of actually asking more questions instead, or kind of listening to what the students say and kind of have them give feedback. I remember in my time at school, I wasn't really asked those things ever. You had to kind of, that is the lesson, you listen, then you study and you do. And I think some change is happening now, but of course more is needed to kind of really listen to what are the needs of the kids. And maybe some are acting out or because of specific reasons. And I think whenever we make a bit more effort to really try to understand that person, then we get more out of it. But I also understand from a teacher perspective, having 20, 30 and multiple classes, how do you manage to give the right amount of time to each individual kid? And that is the hard question.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be a blend between teacher time, face-to-face, and technology. But it's a challenge, you're right.
And one last question. What do you think is the parents' role in this? So when a student finishes kind of day at school and comes back home and has to do the homework or whatever, like, what is the role then of parents in supporting that? What do you think it is?
Well, it's massively influential, I think, if they are involved and enthusiastic about what's going on. Technology is opening up what's going on a lot more now, and providing access to homework being set and analytics on performance. And I think anything that can involve them more in the day-to-day and give them more skin in the game. I think, I saw Cardinal Heenan parents who had no involvement whatsoever, for various reasons, and it was entirely down to the school to bring that child up and nurture them and feed them, give them a warm building. So it's such a shame when you see that happen. Obviously, there's always various reasons, but I think there's no excuse with the technology now. I saw even the school offered free laptops and less than half turned up to collect them. And that was quite an eye-opener for me.
Wow, that is heartbreaking.
Yeah, and some of them were sold and things. So there's lots of other factors at play around the country, depending on where you are. But I think we have to keep building them in. It can't just be transactional. Like, they've got to be a key stakeholder and have skin in the game. And I think just opening up what's going on in the school day is a good start. And there's lots of systems now. I'll mention EdTech Impact again. There's lots of parent engagement tools on there that are enabling, real-time access, that minimal effort for the school as well to do this. So I think, some of these tools don't cost much money. So hopefully that's what we're going to see more of in the future.
Let's hope so. Michael, thanks a lot for your time. Thanks for really talking to me about education. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me.